Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Bith, and this is Stardrive. Or more accurately, this is the Stardrive Beta, version 1.06T. This is a game that's going to be officially released on April 26th, so about a week and a half from when I recorded this. And this is one of the few 4X space strategy games that are even being released at all, considering that this is a genre that has not been well fleshed out in recent years. It kind of fell by the wayside, especially after Master of Orion 3 kind of came out and just tanked. So when I say this game takes inspiration from Master of Orion 2, I am not kidding. Like, there are a lot of things in this game that are drawn directly from the game, and that's not a bad thing. Master of Orion 2 did a lot of things really well. So emulating something that works cannot always be a bad thing, or really ever be a bad thing, to be honest. As for some clerical things in the beginning, mods are already enabled. They have been supported since the guy released the game, and by the guy I mean a dude. One guy has made this game by himself. I believe his name is Zero on the forums, and from what I understand, the Kickstarter was fairly successful, and from those funds, Zero went ahead and, from what I've heard, outsourced some of the assets of the game, so like the art and high definition sprites and assets like that were created by someone else, but he pretty much has coded the game by himself from the ground up, which is really impressive considering how good the game is. It is in beta, however, so there are some bugs and some issues and some things that I feel need to be fleshed out, and I'm not sure that the remaining week and a half that he has is going to be enough. But considering how active he is on working on this game and releasing quick patches and updates and listening to player feedback, I'm not really worried about the future of this game, to be honest. So we're going to jump in, and you will notice immediately, if you've ever played Master of Orion 2, that this game emulates it to a huge extent, especially on this screen. So here's the 8 races. You have the Cordrazine, yeah, I guess that's like the drug. You have the Draylock, you have the humans, of course. You have the Kulrathi Shogunate. They're basically space samurai bears. Pretty hilarious. Opterus, which is the mechanical race, mechanical bugs. You have Apolyps, which is basically the plant race. Pretty sure Master of Orion 2 had one. I haven't played that game in years. The Ralia, they're basically the Cthulhu, space Cthulhu monsters. And then you have the Wolfar, which are, if you see their spaceships designs, they're very, they basically have submarines in space, and even the inside of their ships. And when you're talking to them, you actually hear sonar pings and all that fun stuff, so they're a fairly interesting race. This is like one of the main warlike races. They never ensue for peace. They'll just attack. They won't really declare war on you very often, but they will fight and not do peaceful stuff. And that's one thing that this game does have, if I recall correctly, Master of Orion 2 had as well, is very particular AIs. For instance, the Draylock are the subterfuge and intelligence empire, so they're very prone to use agents and all that fun stuff, and their traits obviously reflect that. Humans are peaceful-ish and well-balanced. These guys are interesting because this is the actual race, and this is their slave race of Owlocks, I think is what they're called. And they're slightly humorous. But one of the big factors is each race has its own line of ships. So each ship hull design for each race is going to be different. So certain races are actually better at doing certain things. So for instance, the humans and the Wolfar and the Kulrathi have kind of compact ships, so they're easier to armor around the sides and throw weapons down the center line of the ship. The Draylock have these very, not so much organic, but rounded, sweeping ship designs. and they actually have open space inside some of the larger ships. So like this little spot right here on the larger ships is actually open. So they're relegated to certain kind of ship designs a little bit better. So let's get into the actual customizations. So this system is almost identical, and some of the attributes are, for instance, cybernetic, which is easily the most powerful trait you can pick. But you can choose things like polluted homeworld, huge homeworld, small homeworlds. Prototype flagship will give you an early frigate with some more advanced technology, which can be useful. I usually end up losing it and get it blown up, so I don't really like it that much. But this basically just allows you to customize your race. So you can now play with industrious, so you can get more production, or trade production to do something else, like getting more money. Or like mercantiles, like in an interesting one, because freighters, you can actually move your resources like food and production from planet to planet. And when you do that with this ability, you get extra money for it. So, be able to generate a lot of income. I'm going to go ahead and just roll up a quick game with the humans. I prefer that flag myself. Up here are the options to customize the game. You can choose the galaxy side. Tiny, epic, small, medium. I'm going to do medium. One of the problems with the game is it's not terribly optimized. So, well, it's not well optimized. So later in the game, it slows down a lot at times. And one of the huge differences in this game as opposed to Master of Orion 2 is that the combat is actually real time. So one of the things that I kind of correlate this game to is a mix of Master of Orion 2 and Sins of a Solar Empire. The combat is very much Sins-esque. It's actual real time, and you can watch the fights and you can zoom in, and it's really, really fun to watch and design your ships and see how they actually function and survive and not survive and blow up spectacularly. But what's interesting is the game is still a turn-based game. The turns, however, are similar to games like Neverwinter Nights, for instance, where the turn is based on real time. So like in Neverwinter Nights, one round is an actual 6 seconds. In this game, every turn is a real-life 5 seconds. So if you generate one production a turn and you need 27 turns to build a ship, for instance, so maybe a round number would be better. So if you need 20 turns to build a ship for one, that'll take 5 seconds per, so that'll be 100 seconds. So that's almost 2 minutes just to build one ship, and that's in actual real time. So again, you can customize extra solar systems, the number of opponents. If you don't put 7, then not everyone will be here. So basically you're going to play, and then you have the 7 other dudes. So it puts all the races in. So if you reduce this, you're not going to see some of the races every game. Sandbox is the only current game mode. You can win by conquering or uniting in an alliance. If you set opponents to 2 and you end up rolling the pull-ups and like humans, you don't ever have to do anything and you just win the game with an alliance. So that could be seen as a downside or just wonky game mechanics. Pace is something interesting for people who like big, long, epic, drawn-out games, like super grand strategy. I would argue that the 100% pacing is a little bit fast. I've tried it at 200% as well, which it actually felt a little more like a turn-based game, although sometimes it felt like stuff took forever. And I have not tried it, but my brother tried it at 400%, and God, does that take forever. So basically this just multiplies your numbers. So if you play at 200%, something that costs 20 is going to cost 40. But the 5-second turn timer is still going to be the same thing. What that does really is allows you to play the battles with your ships kind of longer, because it takes longer to get new ships and research new ships, obviously. So it'll just make it feel more like a turn-based game than a real-time strategy game, because 100% feels a little bit more like Sins, and that it feels kind of like an RTS. But with the overarching Empire mechanics and how easily he makes it to manage like big fleets and stuff, it's actually really fun even at 100%. I like it. Difficulty, obvious. I've not played too much with the difficulty because I did hard once and kind of got wrecked in the very early game, but I was playing at 200%, so the game was going really slow. So I think the AI cheats a little bit. I'm not 100% sure, but I think they spawn ships out of nowhere, which kind of sucks. It's something that, what was it? Birth of the Federation did a long time ago. So old school games. So I'm just going to hop in here. You can actually customize all of these things here. Your name, your plural, your singular. And one of the interesting things with the humans is if you start with a sol system, you will get our solar system. However, if you rename this solar system to something else, you will get a generic solar system with 2 planets in it. Your starting planet and another planet. That's random. Sometimes you can start with a good secondary planet, which can be good. And another thing to note with the Kulrathi is this system is pre-generated as well. It's got 3 planets in it, and one of them is called Kalis, which is Star Trek fans will know what that is. Alright, so let's run in here. Pretty quick load times, considering kind of the scale of the game. This is the Wolfar ships. This is like their basic fighter. Even that looks submarine-ish. It's a pretty interesting ship design. So here's the game. I'm gonna hit spacebar to immediately pause the game, so I have time to do what I need to do and explain some of the mechanics to you. So mouse wheel will zoom in and out. Control mouse wheel will zoom you all the way out and all the way in. And just like Sins, you'll zoom in on your mouse cursor, so you can kind of do this, flip around the map. The arrow keys are really slow, so I just use this, and there's a button down here that'll actually send you all the way out. Wrong button. This one will send you all the way out. Control all the way in. So you start out with a flagship, which if you don't take the advanced flagship trait, it'll just be a combat fighter. This is the unarmed scout version of it, but it will be named, and it's always named Perseverance, so you can change the name. What is this? Might as well. This is the Federation of Planets, so let's see if I can spell. I probably spelled that wrong. You also start with a colony ship. Oh, I unpaused it, which is kind of funky. If you're naming a ship and you hit the space bar, it will unpause the game as well as putting a space in the name. A little bit wonky, but yeah. It's still beta and no game is perfect. One of the things that took me a while to figure out, that I'll show you now, is that you can see your ship's components in space. Like, I was wondering what the hell my starting ship ever came with, because it doesn't show you anywhere, the design's not posted anywhere. So what you do is you get in really close and you hit the tab key, and it'll show you the components of your ship. So it'll, depending on how far you zoom out, is what you'll see. So if you're here, you can see like the battle damage, and then when you're closer, you can see the actual components here. So these are armor plates on the side. It's got some laser turrets, a beam turret on the front, some point defense lasers, some power cores, a more advanced bridge, some shields, and some big engines. This is stuff. These are all like tier 2 components, and the ship itself is technically tier 3. Well, I guess tier 2. So you can tab out of that. You can go check out your freighters and stuff. They just have energy cells, which is kind of a bad design. Some of the base designs are not terribly good. But, of course, what's a 4X game without research? So we're going to go up here, and this is the research tree. It's kind of like a blending again of Massive Orion and Sins. Massive Orion was a little more abstract. It didn't really have an actual tree, from what I remember. You just kind of like pick boxes, and it told you what text you might get. But it's not as linear and convoluted as Sins can be. So that it does have the linear tree, but it does branch off in certain places, and it actually explains exactly what each tech does. As you can see, there's little icons next to each thing, so you can go here. You can go aeroponics. Will teach you how to build the aeroponic farm, which gives you flat 1 food on your planet. Industrial foundations, which is pretty much one of the best ones, gives you the rover bay, which gives you an extra 1 production, and warehouses, which is really good for fledgling colonies, so they can store extra resources to rush production. Though that system is one system in the game that's a little bit wonky and needs to be addressed. Of course, you got energy, which has your energy weapons, your upgraded power cells, and your shielding technology. Sociologistics, this is your economic branch here. This is your communication branch, and this is fleet supply. This adds the ability to manage your ordnance, which I'll explain in a little bit. Physics has ionic weaponry, tractor beams, EMP cannons, all that fun stuff. This is sublight speed. This is cool. This is the a warp inhibitor, so you can trap enemies from doing warp stuff. Better reactors. This is communications and inertial dampeners, which I haven't really used much, but you can get really stupid fast ships with this stuff. Space weapons is going to have some of your more advanced stuff, like missiles, which are really good. Your advanced railgun technology, and of course PD technology, point defense. Very important if the enemy is building lots and lots of missile ships, because missiles can wreck your day, because they have quite a good range and pack a punch. And then ship construction, these are your larger ships here. The Corvette, I'm not sure if it's a naming convention. I think everyone has it as Corvette, but some races call the Corvette a heavy fighter. I'm not sure if he does that on purpose, or if that's just a lore thing, or if it was just a mistype or a design change. So it's kind of weird sometimes when somebody explains the Corvette as a heavy fighter, because it kind of is. That's why I was going to say the frigates here can be technically tier 2, and this is like 1.5, because this is just a slightly bigger fighter. And then you can come down to cruisers, battleships, and titans, which are absolutely retardedly big. They're called dreadnoughts, but whatever. Battleship, heavy cruiser. That's one thing that is a little bit off-putting, is that the name of the stuff is a little bit wonky. Battleship construction. This is like a heavy cruiser class, and this is an emissary cruiser class. So I don't know. I guess it's that's actually based off of the race, because if you play the Wolfar, they're actually, all their ships are called Type 1 to like Type 13, and they just have random ones, so like Type 1 and Type 2, and this is like Type 5, and this is like Type 10, and this is like 11 or 12, and their Titan's 13. Down here you got, this is kind of like, you can build space stations, and these things are powerful as hell. And you can kind of build them anywhere, which is interesting, which I can show you a little bit later. And larger freighters, which, from what I've uncovered recently, one of the issues with freight and trading between your systems actually has to do with the larger freighter models. Because from what I read, somebody was testing it out, and a freighter will not take a partial load. So if you get a medium freighter that can hold 50 units, if it's at a planet that has 49 production, it will not pick up that 49 production until it pops up to 50. So that could be a fix that the creator can look into. And here's your armor tech. Armor is very good. My first games I was like ignoring armor like crazy, and I was losing my ships, and I would come up against an enemy who had tons and tons of armor on his. I think he had just an early frigate. Actually, I think he was at cruisers at that point, and I had some powerful ships, but he was so well armored that a couple of his ships could just take my entire little fleet that was only a little bit bigger than his, and I couldn't break his armor and actually start destroying his ship. So armor theory is good. I'm actually going to start with armor theory and Corvette hulls, and then I'll get industrial foundations. One of the starting things is militaristic, which will give you military outposts, which is ground troop based stuff, and armor theory and Corvette hulls. So it's actually a really, really good starting thing, because those three things, especially these two, are really good. So that is technology. Technology has, of course, these beaker counts. You start with about 1.5 to 2. I can adjust that when I get into my empire. So some of the overarching management systems are rather interesting. So if I go into my empire list, this will have every planet listed that I have colonized, and it'll have all these basic details, and when you click on them you'll see what the planet looks like. You can enable and disable the AI. I don't really use the AI because it does some weird things, and based on how the game's money works, it can really screw you up. So I usually drop my food down, and I'll have a decent amount of production. Oops, I'll lock my food, and then drop this down a little bit, grab a little more production. And you can double click and go directly into the planet. This is the more direct screen. One thing to note is that this screen is auto pause. It will automatically pause the game no matter what. But when you go back onto your planets, this is not a paused screen. So if you're here and you go here, it will unpause the game if you didn't have the game paused already. Just something to note. So here's your storage and the stockpiles that you can use. You can rush production in this game, which is good, which is basically what you want to do with founding colonies. The problem is how rarely the freighters seem to work after a point, or just sometimes they just don't want to work at all. So I'll have a planet sitting around that I need to build like a warehouse so that I can ship more production to it, and it just won't get any, and I'll have to wait. I'll have to wait like 5 minutes while it builds a warehouse or a rover bay at 0.1 production a turn. So, and that's one of the other interesting things that this game has, is that it's a really small scale with all the numbers. And from what I can tell, all these numbers are tracked to the 10th or even the 100th decimal place. So if you're gaining, if you're actually gaining 0.01, and it won't actually show you that, but it'll eventually start adding in the numbers. Like up here, like the money numbers, it actually shows the 2 decimal places, but most other places it does not. But it does track those, so it's very good, especially for population growth. Because like I have 14 population, and that's 14 billion people, from what he said. So growing your population, one of the traits is your max population growth is 0.02, I think, per turn. So it will take 10 turns just to get 0.1 dudes, no matter how much population you have. And population growth is exponential, so the more population you have, the more you'll get next turn. So the main tactic is to take freighters and have population, which is something that seems to work a lot, is the population works, because I guess there's so many population, sometimes so less resources, that freighters will always grab the dudes and take them to other planets. So if you have your 14 dudes here, and you have like 5 freighters, just take off like a full 2 billion people, so you're down to 12. In like 15-20 seconds, you'll be back up to 14 billion population, or whatever, 14. So that's kind of how that works. Here's your build queue. I have no buildings to build at the moment. These are your ships that you can build, and troops. Ground troops are finicky at best. It needs a little bit of a rework, I hope. He makes them a little bit less micro-intensive, considering how well the rest of the game is quote-unquote automated and allows you to do stuff. The troop mechanic is very old school. You have to micromanage like crazy, so a lot of people just ignore it and build ships with nukes and just bomb planets and recolonize them. It seems to be more simple. These are the basic ships. This is an old ship design. Just I turned a freighter into a bomber because the early ships have a tough time carrying bombs depending on your race. So the small transports is basically your freighter. As you can see, it's based off of the freighter hull design. Colony ship, obviously what it says, it colonizes. Your scout, this is a weird one. I don't know if I've edited this one. This is actually ship design here. One of the things I'll do is I'll come in here and make this a real scout and swap these crap engines for warp engines, so it's really, really fast. So I guess while I'm in here I might as well explain. This screen is probably going to be a long video, so. The shipyard. This has one of the best ship design systems I've seen in these type of games, and I love ship design. It is hugely fun. Master of Orion 2 had it. Sword of the Stars is a game that I like. Has it a little bit, but not anywhere near as good as this or Master of Orion. Stuff like that. So what you have is you can take a basic design. I'm going to just oversave the basic ship. But you can load up a basic fighter. This is the shuttle. Basic human, small ship. Use it as a fighter. And these are your stuff you can put on it. So what you need is, you need power. This will actually tell you the things that are required. These aren't required, but these X's are. So you have to fully fill up every slot on your ship, and you have to have a bridge or a cockpit. So we can start with our command, go to cockpit, and just throw one of those on there. And it's unpowered. So you go to power, do a power plant. Probably just one small nuclear reactor will work. And that powers most of the ship. When you one reactor has a specific range, and the lighter green tiles are the ones that are powered, and the darker green tile is not. So like if I put something there, it would be unpowered. If I threw another reactor there, it now powers it. So the small reactors have 2 tile power in each range. There's a medium reactor, which won't do much on a small ship because it would fill up almost the entire thing. It's a 2x2. So yeah, it would fill up almost my whole ship. Ship obviously needs engines. So I do 2 small engines. It'll be quick, but have, like I was highlighting earlier, lower FTL speed. Turn rate is actually degrees per second. So I can turn 50 degrees per second, so it'll take a couple seconds to fully turn around. So those are the main, that's the meat and potatoes of your ship. Aside from filling up every slot, the ship is done. You don't need ordnance capacity, you don't need cargo space, and you don't need shield power. But if you want this to actually fight someone, you're going to have to put some weapons on it. And the only real weapons that fit on a ship like this are Vulcan cannons. So I just throw 4 Vulcan cannons on there. One thing I didn't note, but should, is if you see these symbols, well, letters, I guess letters are symbols, eh? This is an interior slot, and this is an interior outside slot. E is for engine, so not exterior. And E, of course, E can only hold engines. I think, actually, I'm going to test it right now. I think it holds power conduits, too. Yeah. Power conduits are useful because it extends the range of your power. I think it adds, instead of 2 from this, it adds like 3 or 4 from the actual conduit. I think it's 4. That sounds about what I remember seeing happen, because I never really measured it myself. So my engine back on. Let's go grab another Vulcan cannon. And these Vulcan cannons are pretty good. One of the things I really like about the weapon system in this game is that it does away with a system like Space Empires is another one that I really liked, for instance, for 4X games. And one of the problems I always had with Space Empires was you had like your Mass Driver, you had your Mass Driver Mark 1, and then you research a new tech and now you have Mass Driver Mark 2. And then you research another tech while you're building ships with Mass Driver Mark 1s, and now you have Mass Driver Mark 3s. And then each one is obviously better than the previous one. The problem with that system is you end up with a huge fleet of ships that are obsolete rather quickly, and you have to refit them, which just adds a huge mess of logistics to the game. So the fact that the basic weapons, these Vulcan cannons are one of the best weapons in the game. They're not one of the best, really, but for their size, the fact that they're 1 slot, they do a lot of damage. So this weapon will always be relevant even towards the end of the game. Like, you can put a huge bank of these on bigger ships and not be making a huge mistake. It might not be as efficient as using other weapons, but these weapons are not useless, and they don't get obsoleted at any point. They just not be up to snuff against the armor that some of your enemies might start popping out. So you might want to put better weapons, but you don't upgrade like Vulcan Cannon Mark 5s and then have to upgrade all of your fighters into something better. However, this brings in to something I mentioned earlier, is ordnance. All projectile weapons use ordnance, and all energy weapons, which we do not have access to yet, you have to research them, they use energy. So if you see, this is the cost that it is to build your ship, so it'll take 20 production. This is the power capacity, 20. Power recharge rate. Recharge at warp is basically simulating how much energy the ship requires to maintain a stable warp field. So whatever the difference is here is basically how much your ship requires to do that. I think it's double. Your component's energy is doubled while you're at warp, which is a good gameplay mechanic, but it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense in real life, because you would just shut down. Like, you would just shut down your weapons while you're at warp because you can't fire them anyway. So it is a good balancing gameplay mechanic. It just doesn't make a huge amount of sense to me. Another thing is total hit points. This is hugely misleading because of the way damage works. The ship's way too small to really put armor on it, but the game actually simulates damage from where you take a hit. So if you're getting shot from the left and the attack hits here, it'll damage this cannon. If you had armor just to the left of it, it'll hit the armor and not the cannon, so the cannon's perfectly fine. So this number, the ship doesn't just take 1100 damage and then explode. If you get hit from the back, or even from the side here with a couple of, like 2 missiles, one missile that does, let's show the health right here. One missile that does 100 damage, and then another missile that does 100 damage slams into your reactor. It'll destroy your reactor by only taking 200 damage. And if you read down here, whenever a nuclear reactor is destroyed, it will detonate. So this reactor will detonate, causing this one to detonate, causing most of your internals to be just outright destroyed. And even if you still have some cannons up here still working, the actual ship will have taken too much damage and just explode completely. So I believe it's once you've taken, I don't even remember, I want to say 70% damage to your internals, your ship is automatically destroyed, but that's just a number I pulled out of my head and I don't know if it's accurate. But back to ammunition and ordnance. Being that this is used ordnance, these guns fire 0.1 per shot, and they fire fairly quickly. I'm actually not sure what the speed number actually relates to, but this doesn't eat huge amounts of ammo, but I only have 16 ammo, so these 4 guys take 0.4, so that's like 40 shots with these guys. So even if it's 1 second, if they're firing constantly for 40 seconds, they're going to be out of the fight, which the battles in this can take minutes at a time, because it is in real time, and they're actually maneuvering and firing and doing all that fun stuff. So what I want to do is I want to add storage, a small ordnance supply, and that'll give me a huge boost to my ordnance, at least for this ship. Only 25, but considering I started with 16, that's more than doubling how much I have. So now I can fire over 100 volleys with this thing, and still have a little bit of ammo left over. So if you've noticed over here and you were watching it, as you add stuff, this number goes up, your mass, and the higher your mass is, the lower these numbers all get. These numbers are based off of your engine values. Again, these are just numbers that I don't know the exact values of, so you just kind of wing it at that point. So what I can do to show you how it works is I can grab a small warp engine, and if you watch, the FTL number will go up, the sublight speed and the turn speed will go down. Like that. So this is a hugely faster FTL fighter, and still I'm actually going to leave it that way, because I hate really slow ships. It takes forever to get where I want them. So the turn rate of 27 is pretty good even for a fighter. I'm going to leave it on strafing, just so it flies in, does damage, and then gets on the other side, and then it'll come back and fly again. And that's, you can actually tell each model what to do. So this is basically just flies up in weapons range, just starts unloading on him until he dies. This is hold position. He'll fight. When he gets where he needs to get, he'll just sit there, and if he gets attacked, he'll engage. Otherwise, he'll just not move. This is, some people call it orbit. What it does is it keeps one of your facings of the ship towards the enemy that you're fighting. So for instance, if you take a larger ship and you just armor the left side, you can tell it to always face the port side of your ship to the enemy. So they'll always be firing into heavily armored side, and then you can load up the right side of your ship with a whole bunch of turret weapons and arc their turrets to the left and just blast them with broadside. Can be pretty effective. I prefer brawler ships that are fully armored on the outside and just dive in the middle and just start blasting things with turrets. Those are fun. So I'm going to go ahead and save this design. You can name it. I already have that design. Yep. Vulcan fighter. So there's that. There's also the freighter, and you can load up platforms too. You can also go to load and load the designs that are currently here. Scouts, and there's my fighter. I can load up my colony ship, which actually is pretty garbage. Usually spends a lot of time at warp, so I'm going to do that. And one thing I'm not sure about, I'm going to do it anyway, because I'm going to throw these on here. You can actually hold it and drag. I don't need that extra power for any reason, so that might actually let it carry more colonists. So, do that. Just save over. Alright, now that that one thing's been shown, where was I? Here? Alright. So, one of the things I like to do initially, especially on 100% speed, is, did I fix this scout? Yeah. Is I build a bunch of scout ships, because you need to explore the galaxy, one of the 4 X's, to exploit the galaxy and expand in the galaxy to the other 4 X's. So we're going to build 5 of these guys, which happens to be this number here, times 5. And you can rush production with this right here. So one of the things you need to know about this that it doesn't actually tell you is that this takes credits as well as production. So if you hit it once, it'll expend 10. So that's now under 1,000. So it took 10 of my credits and 10 of my production. So go 10 and then 1. As you can see in the tooltip, if you've been reading it, if you hold control and click, it spends as much as it can. There. I now have 5 scouts, 14 production saved and left over, and I can tell the planet to do something else. So what I like to do is I like to start with a couple of transports to get my new colonies that I'll form fairly quickly and make sure I have a freighter for them. And then I like to queue up some ground troops in order to get a hold of anomalies, which are basically like artifacts and stuff on planets. I'll show you those in a bit. Now, most of that's been shown. What I want to explain to you, which is something that I found interesting and odd, and I'm not sure that I like it, is how taxing works. Tax is, if we click on here, tax is, doesn't produce any unhappiness, but what it does is reduces your production research by a set amount. That's actually one thing this game is really, really good at, is tooltips. Almost everything in the game you can mouse over and it will tell you a tooltip and it will be detailed. And that is extremely impressive, because a lot of games don't do that well enough. So, but one of the odd things is it doesn't actually, it says that it taxes population, but it doesn't really tax population. It taxes your actual production and research values. So my tax rate's at 25%. It actually taxes this number by 25% and this number by 25%. So most of us being smart enough to know that 7.4 is higher than 1.5. So 25% of 7.4 is far more tax money than what research provides at 1.5. So the best way to make money in this game is to have a lot of production. The one thing I really despise that this game does is that extra production is wasted and goes nowhere. It just disappears and you never see it again. So it does encourage too much micromanagement, because you have to make sure your planets that produce production are using it, or you're wasting it. It goes nowhere. I mean, it does your stores, but when your stores are full and your production is still going, you don't even get credits for that production that's produced every turn. So one of the things that I really hope he implements is this being converted into trade of some kind, i.e. credits, so that a planet with high production that's not producing anything will actually give you some kind of return instead of just punishing you. So that is something to note, and again, this game is still in beta and can be modded, so I'm sure that will be a super easy mod to do if anybody wants to do it, if the creator does not. So now that we've done our planet, and probably have been in the video for like 40 minutes already, we're going to go to the next 4X that I've mentioned, and we're going to explore. Unarmed Scout, this will auto-explore the galaxy for you. So I'm going to unpause it. He's going to go explore, and the dudes that I just built are going to fly out of my planet here in a second. They're right there. Yep. You can click these guys and tell them to explore. I'm assuming you can click box them all and tell them to explore, but I'm not sure if they'll go to the same place or not. The AI for exploring seems to be pretty good, because I told all those guys to explore. They will all go to a different system. As you can see, there they go. So one of the things you can do is you can click on a star and it'll actually expound it, and you can see all these things. And as you see, I discovered an anomaly. This is what I like to have soldiers for. I can click on the planet, and I can click on this button here, which is the ground assault view, and it'll show me what's on it. So it's a tomb. So I can just drop a troop here, and it will give me that reward, whatever is there. Like how there's a Saturn star system. I have Saturn in here, guys. Which planet is it? This one? Yeah. Alright, so now we're exploring a bunch. I can go to my empire and see this stuff going. So I've already got my freighters done. How you use freighters is you can AI these, or I prefer to just select it. This one's going to move production, and this one's going to move people. I don't use control zoom very often. Alright, so now I'm going to pause this and explain some of this stuff. As you can see, these numbers are very low. Again, he uses a really low scale, which I think is kind of interesting, but these two planets are really good. As you can see just from the picture, they look Terran-esque. This planet can hold up to 8 billion people, and this 4.4 billion people. The number below that with the corn is fertility. That means for every 1 billion people, 1 unit of production, 1 unit of citizenship working in food will generate 0.6 food for the planet. So that's not particularly efficient, considering that you need one dude to support a little bit more than half the food needs for that one guy. However, its richness is 1.9, so for every dude working, you're going to produce 2 production. So this is a really good planet for production. This is even better, but this is a barren planet, so you need to get biospheres later on with technology in order to actually start, because you can only build on 1 tile. When you land, that's the only thing you can build on. You need biospheres in order to build more structures and produce more people. Every biosphere gives you 500 million population, so 0.5. Up here, let's see if we have anything else worth colonizing. I know it's the anomaly, but I forgot to mention this. These are hostile forces, as you can see, tooltips. If you don't know what something is, just mouse over it, and the game will probably tell you exactly what it is. And Neptune is also a system. So here's another planet that's a pretty good one to colonize, and this would be a good food planet because the production is awful, but the food is pretty good. So, I mean, if I was here and I had all my dudes working food, they can provide enough food for themselves and enough food for another 4.5 people, so they could also feed this planet over here. It's like this planet. So this one food planet could feed itself and this planet with my freighters running around, and all these people could work and produce 8 production, 9 production, maybe 10, something like that. Lolth. Nice. Yeah, the star systems are funny because they're just from everything. Every nerd center of the galaxy you can find is from D&D, for instance. So while you're doing that, diplomacy we can't really use yet, but I will show this screen that I showed earlier, which is a rather good screen. This shows you every planet you found so far. It will tell you who owns it, and you can just click colonize. And we're going to go here and see, okay, we got our fertilities. This is 4.1 fertility. So this is a really good food planet. This will provide over 20 food. And it's garbage for production, so that's good. The only problem is I think this is that one system with a lot of the really good systems are going to have what's called the remnant at that system, and they're basically just robotic drones that keep you from getting the really good systems immediately. But Neptune had this pretty good system just to generate food, and this one had this really good production. I'm actually going to settle here first because there's an easy way to get food early, plus Sol can generate extra food if I need it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click colonize, and then I'm going to select this dude and show you that the game loves to automate basic tasks for you. En route to colonize Kalis 1. Kalis 1. So whenever you give a colonization order, the game will just grab one of your colony ships and send it over there. I'll get back to that in a second. Here's the diplomacy screen. These screens are very nice, very well animated. They gave them freaking Japanese-like language, kanji going on there, a holographic keyboard. Another thing that I like about the the diplomacy in this game is it's fairly transparent, because over here, these sliders are actually useful, unlike some games that you have diplomacy, like, was it Civ 4, for instance, had diplomacy that was just kind of ridiculous, because, I mean, they would have these numbers, and sometimes the numbers didn't mean anything. So it was kind of transparent, but still people did really irrational things. In this game, everyone does their own personality. Like, these guys are very honorable, so as long as you don't, like, attack them or backstab somebody or do something really dumb, they're going to be your friends and they're going to want to trade. They're not going to be overly aggressive. However, if you mess with them, they'll come and wreck your face because they got really good soldiers. And you can ask them some funny things, because how do you hold a sword with no thumbs? I don't know. You didn't really answer the question. I mean, how do you hold... You can hold one sword between two paws, but a sword in each paw? That's kind of crazy. Some other things you can ask about their people. So, you can negotiate and trade stuff. You can plead for stuff. You can just have respectful negotiations, or you can threaten them. So if their fear rating's really high, and you threaten them in order to give you technology, which they start out with those guys, so they're more likely to give it to you. If they have really high anger towards you, they're more likely to declare war. If they have a high trust, they trust you, and they're going to try to make trade agreements and ally with you and form a federation with you. So that's diplomacy. Now for colony, there's my armor theory undone. A couple more anomalies, I'll just ignore those because I'll get to them when I see them. Another thing to note about colony ships is, like I said, if you tell it to colonize, it will grab one of your colony ships and send it there. What happens if you do not have a colony ship built and ready to go? Well, this game is crazy awesome in that regard. Colonize. Okay, I want that colonized. So I'm going to pause the game real quick. I'm going to go to my empire, and I'm going to go to my construction queue. It's not here yet. The hell? Maybe because it's still paused. Go away. Empire. There it is. Colony ship. As you saw, I didn't tell it to build it. The game, when you tell it to do something, the game will automatically build stuff for you, which is really cool. It's not perfect because sometimes it won't build it at planets that you want it to build at. Most of the time it does the closest planet, though if you have a huge fleet order, which I'll show in a second, it will spread it around so that most of the ships come out in a reasonable time instead of sending 20 ship orders to one planet. So I will actually show you that now. Here's the fleet system. The fleet system I really, really like. I'm going to select first fleet. Do I have any designs loaded? I don't think so. So I have to make my own. This is going to get another pass, hopefully, because there's some things that it does that you can't physically do. For instance, I'll do this now so you can see it. I'm going to grab my flagship, and I'm going to... That's one of the things about real-time games, just keep getting crap while you're playing. So I'm going to grab this guy, and I'm going to hit Control 1, and that's going to create a first fleet with one ship. If I grab him as well, hold shift and click him in, and hit Control 1 again, one of the things the game does is it creates these things, these little squad things. The problem is that there is no way to create these without using the method I just showed. You cannot, in this screen, create squads. But the squads will actually link the ships together. So if I grab the fighter, you click on the ship that you want. If you hold shift, you can place multiple ships. So I'm going to place 3 fighters here. Now those fighters are there. However, what you can do is you can grab this, mouse over the squad so it lights up, and then drag out, and he is now attached to said squad. So if I do that with all of my ships, now I have a squad and I can move it around. The problem is that you can't get this without using the control scheme, and you can only get as many squads as you have ships, divided by 4 from what I noticed. But I don't want the ship in here, so I'm going to delete it. I'm going to delete his little squad icon thingy too. Can I do that? Yeah. So here's my thing. I'm going to throw a few more fighters in this, because these fighters have no defense, so they're just going to get shredded. So here's my thingy. I'm gonna go ahead and save this design. I'm not gonna save this design. The save and load design is a little wonky. You can save a design and then load it as one of the fleets. The problem is that when you load it, it renames the fleet to whatever you saved the design as, and you cannot rename fleets, which is... Oh no, you can't rename fleets. I didn't actually check that spot before. Never mind, ignore me. But it will name it, like if you name it Destroyer Fleet, and you load it, it will call it Destroyer Fleet, and you can rename it if you wish. Now, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go to Requisition. Now, there's two things you can do here. If you're already building ships, and you have some of those ships, there is a button here. I don't remember what it's called, but it will, I think it's assign ships. These are the ships that you own. If you already have them, you can assign them, and it'll fill in, and they'll immediately fill in the fleet. And the nice thing about that is they'll immediately go, like if you have your first fleet set up in this system, they'll immediately go from wherever they are. So if you have a couple of fighters built here and then a couple of fighters built here, they'll go from here to here and just meet up with wherever the fleet's supposed to be. So that automates all that stuff for you, which is really nice. However, if you don't have anything built, you can click Build Now, and it'll now requisition all those fighters for you. So if you go to your Empire, you go here, it is now building all those fighters to fill in my fleet. And these fighters are specifically designed, dedicated to that fleet. So once they're built, they will be in the fleet, and they will head out and join it. So that's really nice. And when you have a really big empire and all you're doing is managing your fleets and trying not to die and having big wars, it's really, really fun and convenient. Because I mean, it's really convenient in such that you can keep having the fun that you want, because all you have to do is go Fleet 1, Requisition, Build, and all the ones that are red, it'll start building the ships for you. And once they're built, they will send it to the fleet. So if your fleet's getting low, you just retreat, have them build the stuff, and once the fleet's at big enough strength, you can get back into the fight. So it's a really nice mechanic. Well, there's a lot more. I mean, I'm not doing anything. I should let the game keep running. Alright, so you can hit the plus and minus key. You hit top right corner here, you can see this extra speed. So it's running at ×2. So each turn is actually taking 2.5 seconds instead of 1, or instead of 5. 3. I guess the speed's limited again. So I'm getting a lot of exploring done. Okay, so he wants mutual non-aggression pact. Sure. Why not? I don't want to fight people I don't have to. Because these guys... No, is those space bears? No, those are the Wolfar. They are mean. And these guys are kind of mean too. These guys are very easily declare war on you. These guys don't really declare war very often on me, but they never try to go for peace. But I did just found my colony here. So I can go over here and go to my new colony. This is my new colony. You can use this, but I don't. I usually drop research because the best way I've noticed to get research is to just build a certain structure later in the game, but because you get so much less money from research, I usually just focus on production. And since this planet sucks for food, I'm going to go like this. Screw the food. You guys are going to starve. They're going to import food, and I can go to my other planet and tell it to export food. So now my freighter, my one freighter that I have built that is set to carry goods around will take food from this planet and carry it to this planet, so this planet will not starve to death. I can also export production, but I don't want them to starve, so I'll do that later when I need to. And I'm not building anything here anyway, so not a big deal. So that's that. I stop pausing it and make the video take way longer. I'm just explaining the basics though. But this is... He wants armor theory. Yeah, no, I'm not giving you armor theory. Now he's mad at me if the anger went up. So that's one step closer to war with him. So here's my colony ship. As soon as it was built, my AI went ahead and just sent it down there. No, I don't want to give you armor theory either. So now I have First Fleet. My ships are built and out on First Fleet. So what I can do is throw a bunch more fighters on here. and requisition them so that it keeps my planet busy. However, I do need to start colonizing some more. You gotta colonize pretty quick, pretty early. Here's another planet that's really good on production with a fairly high amount, but it can't sustain itself. But I will colonize there. This one can sustain itself. And it can hold 2 dudes. So that's good. That's about to get colonized. I'm going to go ahead and colonize this one too. This one has an anomaly, which is a mine, which actually that's really good. So that'll actually give me some production there. And that's 0.5, I don't want that. Is this a crash site? So I'm going to lose my soldier, but I'm going to show you this. This is how this stuff works. The problem with troops is that this is how cumbersome it is. If I want to invade an enemy, I have to go down here and I have to right-click this troop, right-click this troop, right-click this troop, and this troop. Now I have 4 troops to play with. Then you gotta zoom in. Double-click, you can grab them all. Zoom back out. Let's say this is an enemy I was trying to invade. And then I have to click on his planet. There we go. It's a little bit cumbersome. They'll actually tell you a lot where they'll be like, hey, this is our system, and that'll actually cause issues. The problem is that that system's way closer to me. He's like, it's mine! I'm like, no, I'm taking it. Screw you. You build a fleet and kill these guys off. Get your own planets. Jerk. Alright, so here's these guys over here. Doo-doo-doo. So they're gonna warp in. Stop close-ish. And see if they're above the planet yet. Alright, so I'm going to try this with a couple guys. Maybe I won't... I guess I might lose all of them, though. So I'm going to drop my dude on the crash site. Truly awesome discovery. What appeared from orbit. Be a shipwreck, not a wreck, but a completely intact cruiser. Holy moly, I've never had that happen before. And you can launch your dude back in orbit. Wow, I got a cruiser immediately. That's pretty awesome. And it has dudes on it? Ooh. I'm lucky. These are basically like goodie huts and stuff like that. It looks like I like to throw these guys in a deep space. What I'm going to do is add this clown to my first fleet cruiser, ancient torpedo cruiser. Bam! Now, he's in first fleet. And I'm going to take my first fleet over here and try to fight this dude, and hopefully I don't die. So I'm going to show you guys one battle, and then probably cut the video off, because it's probably long already. Kudos to you if you're stuck in this long. It's my Corvette hulls. What am I on now? Industrial production. I'm going to throw in aeroponics for extra food as well. I'm actually not doing anything on Earth, so I'm going to start... Actually, I think this design is garbage. Yeah, this design is complete garbage. It's funny. It's got a huge amount of firepower. I'm gonna build a couple of them. I've actually... I think one of the reasons they suck so bad is I had them on strafing run instead of this, because if they just run up and just start blasting dudes, they can output a lot of damage. So I'm gonna build a handful of these, just to keep my planet busy, because again, if you're not using the production on your planet, it's just wasted. Non-aggression pact. One of the things to note about fleet movement, it's a little bit finicky, I feel. I don't know if I'm missing something or what, but when you're telling it to move together, it'll move in a formation, so it'll usually move at the speed of your slowest ship, which can really hurt, because if you have a ship with, see like how much faster they go without this guy selected. So he's just going to take a sweet, sweet time. And he doesn't want to fight, because he never wants to fight. So he's going to take freaking forever to get down here. I do want you to see him in action. I want to see him in action too. This is an event you have to ignore right now because it's broken. Unless you beeline for a specific tech here, you can't do anything with it, and it never appears again. So if you don't beeline and get it in time, you're screwed. What the heck? Oh man, I'm gonna have to whoop his ass. have to show you some war in another video right after this. Okay, that's taking forever. Yeah. We'll start trading. What trade does is it starts off at -3 credits a turn, and then every turn it increases by 0.1 credit up to a total of 3. But I'm actually got too much money in maintenance now. That cruiser is really expensive. My cruisers are 3 credits. So this is actually going to hurt my production a lot. So I'm running at 60% of my production and research. So that cruiser kind of hindered me. And all the ships that I'm building is not super great. So let's throw these guys over here. I should... Holy moly, look how fast... Oh, I'm at ×4. Okay. Oops. I'm gonna go ahead and just control that into one big fleet, and now I'm gonna jump in system so you guys can watch a fight in real time. We're gonna drop this down to default speed. I'll get him in there first. Let's do this! Alright, here we go. This fleet should be plenty large enough to engage this. Okay. The problem is that my flagship likes to charge in there and die. So I need my fighters, supports. Here, dudes. Alright, so I'm gonna grab these fighters here. Tell them to go here. I'm gonna grab these fighters and engage this fighter here. If I can target it. Apparently not. Oh, because he's in hyperspace. Freaking warp speed, dudes. Alright, so let's get all these guys in here and fighting. Alright, so the engagement's about to start, and here's my ship firing off his pulse beams. Hitting his shields. My shields are holding up. Here's another dude. I probably got some fighters down here. They're not engaging just yet. These are his weapon arcs. So that's the front beam cannon, and these are the pulse beams on the side. Those only show up on your ships, like the ones that you've taken direct control of, which you start out doing it, but you can choose another ship to do it later if this is destroyed. I'm not actually sure what the difference is with that, but it just gives you a flagship, really. So like these guys, this crown over here. So watch these gunboats just unload. Look at how much damage this guy does. And we're gonna go in and watch him as he blows up. As you can see, oh, that's his rear. These things are like that one. These actually fly backwards. Actually, it's back. These ships are a little bit slow. As you can see, that cannon's damaged. Trade with you too. That cannon's destroyed up front. This fighter is pretty much almost destroyed. He's an unarmed scout. So yeah, he's useless anyway, so let's him blow up. There's all my Vulcan cannons. The problem is because of the inertia, you overshoot with a very agile fighter. It takes a while to turn around and do another attack run. So the early battles do take a long time because of that. Now I'm about to pump the shields. See, the green wings, they've taken a little bit of damage, so his engines are a little bit jacked up. This is the damage grid over here. And like I said about exploding, if I can punch through his engines and ignite his reactor, it'll just destroy the whole ship. So that's one thing that the combat's a little bit point and watch, but it does have some really cool things where if you do have if you do pick a flagship as a very agile ship, you can like actually physically destroy enemies. You know, pop up right behind him and focus fire into his ass, explode ships, because usually the engines are exposed unless they have shields, and the reactor is usually right behind the engines, so you can just punch the engines and detonate the ship. So here's all my gunboats, wreck the shields, do a lot of damage. His armor plates failed, and now my attacks are just going to start hitting his internal components. And there he goes. The reactor detonates. And detonating reactors will damage you. I've taken out enemy ships by my ships actually exploding on them. So that's kind of the combat, smaller scale. I'm going to leave it at that for this video. It was probably quite long. Thank you for watching if you watched all the way through, and I will see you in the next one.